trade just yet. Sit down and strap in for the ultimate Supercoach podcast. It's time to win your leagues and dominate your mates. This is the Dual Position Podcast, hosted by Whisperer and Adrianasaurus.
Probably should unmute myself. That'd be a great start. You're listening to the Dual Position Podcast. I am your host, the SCWhisperer, joined as always by your favourite Supercoach's favourite Supercoacher, SCAdrianasaurus, my friend. It feels like so long ago that we spoke about round 3, but round 4 has rolled around. Last week was interesting. As I sent the photo to you, I did sort of my perfect positions for round 3, and there was a whole bunch of misfits in there. So hopefully we can get back to some kind of normality. How have your boys pulled up? How was the recovery session yesterday, and how are you looking for this week?
Yeah, I'll echo with you, the guys that are there in the perfect team, because you look at the teams that are getting the weekly prize as well. They got like 5 nuffs, and they got these random players in there winning it. So it is a bit of a weird old start for the year, and who's doing well. 1,063 for me last week, which I'll accept. I did loop Turbo, but I wasn't feeling confident about Warbrick with no monster in the side, and I had a bit of feeling in my waters that they were going to be, wasn't going to be a trumping like I thought originally it might have been. And I got some red arrows again, so it's not the hardest start I've had, and I just kind of feel like I'm trying to hold it together and stay with my plans and not panic, move on quality players if I can help it, and just keep sticking to what I was planning on doing. And I'm pumped. I just think it's going to be a slower process to sort of get up the ladder this year.
That's one thing I do want to look at. I might do it. I'll have to reach out to a couple of coaches who've done well in previous years. But obviously, like my 2021 season was hell. That was the COVID year, and I was averaging, I think 1,097 points a week, and I finished like 18k, whereas last year I was averaging the same amount of points and finished in the top 150. So I was just sort of looking at average points scored for the week, and obviously the COVID year was an outlier, but I'm going to have to go back and look at like 2021, 2020, 2019, and just see how the average points stacked up for guys that finished in the top 1k compared to sort of what we're going for as well. I also imagine people that are watching this podcast are more engaged super coaches, and they're probably not someone that would fall into the quote-unquote casual bracket. So for you guys out there that are listening, I wouldn't stress too much if you've started poorly, because a lot of these sides, 160,000 people play Supercoach. I would say maybe 40, 50,000 are engaged. I would say a lot of those teams aren't built for long-term success, so I wouldn't be stressing too much.
Old mate who won it last week has 6 nuffs.
Yeah.
So if you just imagine looking at your team and pumping 6 nuffs in there, you could have an absolute gun starting 17.
Also, for full transparency, I am ranked 34,700th, but I'm 300 points outside the top 1k. So, one good captaincy and then a backup week, and you're back in the top 1k, so it doesn't really matter. You're ranked 12,700th, and you're maybe 150 points ahead of me, so it's still very, very tight. I'm not stressed too much. I'm only making one change that I didn't plan on doing, and we'll touch on that when it comes. But let's head around the league. Straight away, breaking news, it's not on the run sheet. Felice Kafusi has been unsuccessful in his judiciary charge, so he's out for 4 weeks. Someone like Lemwelu sort of comes into consideration if you wanted to consider that. But some pre-recorded stuff. Danny Levi is out for 8 to 10 weeks with that broken jaw. Nico Hines, he returns. Very, very good timing for the Sharks. I was very curious to see what happened if the Sharks did win on the weekend, and I'd be curious to see if Hines did suit up. But we'll touch on him and whether we buy him or not this week. As the show goes on. A big one for Ruben Cotter owners, and this is what I mean. Like, you just need the bounce of the ball to go your way. I anti-potted Ruben Cotter. You did as well, and I think he's owned by like 35% of coaches. It sucks for them, but he's out for, multiple weeks, and this is something that they didn't plan on. So that's how you can generate some ground without making a trade that you don't need to. He is out for a few weeks after doing his knee. Money Munster is back for the Melbourne Storm as well after Jarrell Ying, his finger, but he looks to be back. A really, really weird week for Matt Dory. A feared ACL initially, downgraded to just a knee injury, and he's been named. So I
was absolutely shocked when I saw the team list. I was like, on the Sunday pod, I was saying to everybody, it's unlucky. At least he got a price rise, and it could have been a lot worse. But he's gone for the rest of the year. But here he is. He's only back to the bench, but he still probably has a couple of price rises in him.
Yeah, I had full intention of selling him next week, so I'm like, oh sweet, he won't lose any money this week, or he won't make any money. I know how much to budget for next week. But no, he's been named on the bench with Ryan Madison coming back in. But on Dory, he's still got a -9 break even, so he's getting another price rise at least. So that's good for owners. Definitely be holding on to him, and we'll touch on buy, hold, and sell soon. But yeah, I think you hold him and you move to Schuster if you don't have him already. And you can do that next week before Schuster goes up in price, so that's something to consider as well. There was some reports on Monday, Ado, that the Tigers were looking to shake things up with their sort of spine. And, there was some concerns over a turf toe. Bad performance on the weekend from Adam Dewey. He's probably bought himself another week in many, many coaches' sides. He's been moved back to fullback. Wade Egan, the most popular hooker purchase last week, is out with a concussion. Did you buy him last week?
No.
Another thing, like another ball that sort of bounces that way. We never like to cheer on injuries. But Ruben Cotter's out, Wade Egan's out. These are, many teams probably own both, so they're trades that other people will have to make that you can, make up ground on. So, yeah, it's still very early, don't stress. And Big Gregosaurus, he is back in after Dom Young has been dropped. If the plan was to drop Dom Young after 3 weeks, why not just send him to the Roosters and get some kind of, compensation back? And who knows? But a couple of big ones that we've touched on. Denny Levi out for 8 to 10 weeks. As much as we want Tom Starling to be relevant, unfortunately he just isn't, and he will never be relevant under Ricky Stewart.
No, and that's the other thing too. Everyone's always disappointed about that, but there's no way that Starling can't play. I know he played big minutes last week, but he's not a big enough body, and he's not got more than 60 minutes in him. It would be nice if he got 60, but he can never be an 80-minute hooker, I don't reckon, at all, ever, probably.
I've always said, I don't know how controversial this is, but if he played 80 minutes every week, he'd average more than Grant. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I genuinely
he's got some weapons about him in attack for sure. But it's going to be the what worked for the Raiders last year. It's going to be Wolford in there getting the line share probably, because he's just a tackle bot and decent enough service out of there, and they'll just use Starling as an impact player. I thought it was so dumb that they went with Levi to begin with, to be honest.
Yeah, it's Ricky. So it is what it is. Munster is back. And Adam Dewey is not in good form. So it does beg the question, do people move to Munster? I'm of the opinion that there's a certain Parramatta 5'8" that I'd rather move to, and we can touch on that. And then a couple of other things. What do you think of Adam Dewey at fullback? Because I think back in 2020, he played 17 games there, averaged 57, but didn't goal kick as well. So I'm kind of happy to bump him up to, say, a 65. Does play Melbourne this week, which is not an easy game.
No, it's not. And what I'm most concerned about is his attitude, it seemed like last week. It just didn't seem like he wanted to be there. The others were having a dig. Even Brooks had a dig at a point there. It wasn't good looks, was it? It didn't look good.
No, not at all.
He looks a bit slow. I don't even know if it's going to work at fullback. I think he probably he's destined to be a center probably. But when you look at it logically, it should be good for him with that bullet pass chiming into those backline plays. Are they going to have any goes at that playing against the Melbourne Storm after 2 losses? I don't know, but I'm going to get a look at him for one more week. I could be, if I got rid of him, I could, with a couple of jewels and things, I could get Garrick in if I wanted to do a boost.
Spicy.
But I'm just going to try not to boost if I can help it, and stick to my original plan.
Well, you mentioned Garrick. Let's move into the 10 things that we learned from last week. If you have Turbo and Garrick as a stack, could be 200 points for you every week, because Garrick quietly for the last 3 seasons has become elite. Turbo, we know what Turbo can do. But yeah, it just feels like Manly, although they do have tough draws, they're a side that can put up points regardless. And yeah, Garrick definitely does come into consideration. I think the plan for me originally, Ado, was to ride out this Valentine Holmes golden draw and then move to Garrick when the Manly draw opens up. But that could be coming to fruition a lot sooner, because Garrick, there's two sides to this coin because although he is fantastic, he's not going to get out of reach. Like, he's not going to get to 900 million, which is the fear when you're missing out on some of these big guns.
Yeah, he is sort of hover. He never drops really below 700 often, and he doesn't. He'll go up maybe to 800, 850. But the thing is, he's got a 30 break even this week. It is a hard matchup, and it's a away game. I understand why people are bringing him in. I've tipped him to be the top scoring, top averaging center winger. I kind of want to have. I'd love to hold Val, and I want to have at least three sort of as soon as I can that are really strong premium type centers. So if I was going to do Garrick, I'd want to add him as a piece. I wouldn't want to sacrifice another piece. I know Val's been a little bit underwhelming. Maybe that is the move you do, and you use some of your sort of leftover cash.
That's the thing, though. Has Val been underwhelming? He's gone 63, 47, 67, and I don't think I've seen him do anything. So he's averaging
average, and
he's averaging.
People are getting the same out of the hammer.
Fuck the
hammer. Better. So it is unders for Val. Well, we'd like it. We need a ceiling game. Yeah. And I've in my bold calls this week.
I reckon it's this week.
I think he's due. He's bloody due.
It has to be. Yeah. I reckon, Ado, in 4 weeks' time, if you want to be in the top 1,000, you need to be owning Dylan Brown because he is looking very, very good. Parramatta's draw opens up extensively nice. And look, I feel like if you're cutting Dewey now, Munster isn't the one that you move to.
Yeah, I mean, look, Munster's got Origin. You've got the bye there coming for the Storm as well. I think Dillbags is averaging 70 plus, isn't he? I think so. And their draw opens up. That 70 could be an 85, 90 average over those games. He's penciled in for me for sure. I want Dillbacks.
The question is how we get him there, and let's
we hope that Dewey doesn't die in the ass.
Yes, if he can just hold ground, not lose too much cash, then that's the plan. Then we can move on elsewhere. But making cash is the key at this part of the season, and it looks like Tom Gilbert, despite the preseason hype, that died off quickly during the trials because he didn't look good. I fucking hate that I've done this. I never buy into trial form. But unfortunately we bought into trial form. Gilbert was the play all along. He's been the best mid-range front row forward by far.
Yes, by a long way. And I'm sitting here with Welsh, and it was good for the first couple of weeks. Okay, anyway, but that 33 minutes last week has really shit me to tears. So, well done to those guys that went with Gilbert. I think he was our main person we thought we'd want from the Dolphins. It's turned out that there's quite a few in there that have worked out well for people. But he's been good, and he's getting good minutes. He's a really nice piece in their pack. We always thought he's a good player, and he was a good buy for the Dolphins, and he's proving that.
Absolutely. I watched him play. I think he played the first half straight last week and scored 44 points at halftime. That's more than Ryan Sutton scored throughout the game, who I own. It's also more than Christian Welch scored throughout the entire game in one half, who I also own. So not fantastic. But I don't think that the ship has sailed with Tom Gilbert. I think he could be a borderline front row forward 3 all season. Does have the handy duel as well, which is ideal. But yeah, he is the guy. He's a worker. Also, the guy at South Sydney, Ado. There's a premium 2RF. And it's not Cam Murray. It's Keon Golamatangi. He is looking really, really good. Looked really good last year. My fears for him this season were that maybe he had capped. He priced out, and he obviously he's an attacking 2RF. And the Rabbitohs draw was not fantastic to start the season. However, I mean, him close to the line is unstoppable. He is just putting up numbers for fun.
Yeah, he's getting better every year. That's the thing. Everyone was all over Homole, but I reckon Koloamatangi's just come on in leaps and bounds the last couple of years. And they use him terrifically well. Would you go Murray to Koloamatangi? I've got a question like that today, and everyone, I was like, is it sideways? Murray's minutes have been, last week's minutes weren't huge. But Surely Murray to Koloamatangi sideways.
I don't know. Murray's got 110 break even, and Koloamatangi just looks like he's getting better and better. It does look sideways on paper. But no Origin, could be a season keeper. It's definitely one to consider. Second season syndrome is hitting the Cowboys hard. I thought it would, but I didn't think it'd be as hard as what it is. Hence why I wasn't keen on Nanai. Hence why I wasn't keen on Scott Drinkwater, who outscored him himself last week despite not playing. Well done to Drinkwater. But yeah, these guys are just not performing the way we want them to. We mentioned Val before. He's been fine without being excellent. Nanai's been... he had a game under 30. He had a game over 70. He had a game under 50. So it's just the Nanai swings and roundabouts. We've spoken about this beforehand. But the Cowboys, second season syndrome is hitting them pretty hard. Are we worried? Are we cutting ties with the Cowboys guys early? Or are we going to ride out this so-called golden draw?
Well, I mean, I've only got Val, but I'd be moving on Cotter if I had him. Obviously, he's out for too long. But who else has anyone got?
Nanai,
Nanai, I'd be cutting Nanai.
Drinkwater is gone from most teams, obviously. Reece Robson was really good last week. I think he made 55 tackles, had a try involvement as well. So he's fine. Tamalolo, it's not 2018 anymore. But yeah, I think the main guys are Val and Nanai, really. And I'd be holding Val because, as we've said, he's been fine without being excellent, and a breakout game just around the corner. And with these centre wings, if they can string together 2 good back-to-back games, then their price just goes to the moon. But yeah, Nanai's a tough one because I was never keen on him. I never saw the appeal, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I would be cutting ties with him.
Yeah, I would be too. I just think he's too up and down, But I mean, hey, we're going someone like Murray, and I know you've had Murray as well, and what was it? We've had a 40 in there. It's unheard of, really, for him as a premium. So it's weird in second row.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I can't peg it. I can't peg who I want in there. You said Kaloa Batagi. Maybe that's the guy.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm owning for Feeder and Murray and getting outscored by people who have got just playing Preston as their second rower.
Preston Mania is running wild. After you announced your trades last week of Teddy to Walsh, I'm sure at halftime you were getting absolutely sprayed.
I was getting sprayed hard by everyone, and I was on the sherbets as well, so I was posting a bit of stuff to the old socials. And I was copping it from everyone. You had memes going.
I had everything ready. I was fired, ready to go. But in saying that, strap in and enjoy the Reece Walsh roller coaster. Whether you're an owner or a non-owner, it's definitely a sight to behold, because if you're a non-owner, you need to wait until the 80-minute mark. I found that out the hard way when I was sort of chirping him last week. You need to wait until the full-time whistle. And if you're an owner and he's on 10 points at 70 minutes, I wouldn't be too stressed, because a massive involvement could be coming.
You'll be stressed. I was stressed, and then it all just, mate, it went from
mental
the doghouse up to the bloody penthouse. It was so good. But look, on the financials, he's had a ton and a big 90 as well. So you're going to make money unless he comes out and has a real shocker.
Well,
he probably still will.
That's what I've written here. Reece Walsh could score you 300 points in 3 weeks, or he could score you 50 in those 3 weeks combined.
Yeah. That's right. And I don't know if it's going to be a long-term play for you, really. It's a short-term play, and people are selling Teddy to him, which makes sense because Teddy has a big BE, so you might even just be able to buy Teddy back, and bank yourself a good couple of 100,000, 300 or something. It's plausible, and it makes sense to me. If you didn't have Turbo, you'd be getting him and not Reece Walsh, because Turbo's done just as well in his games. And he's someone you can hold for the rest of the year.
I don't answer my DMs as much as you do, but I had a couple of DMs asking me this week, do I buy Turbo or do I buy Walsh? And I was like, shit, for the cash grab, it's Walsh. But if you're buying Walsh, I think you're under the impression that you're selling him in maybe a month's time. So that's something to consider. Despite having his mum sent to jail, a disrupted preseason, year-on-year average decreases for the last 4 years, Payne Haas is well and truly back. The unfortunate thing with Payne Haas, though, as we mentioned in the preseason, after round 9, he's probably done for the season. I don't really see him being viable in many people's sides after round 9, so now is probably the week to buy him. And with Ruben Cotter out, it makes it all the more easy to jump to Payne Haas, and he looked really good. Not just last week, the week before he looked really good. Round 1, he looked really good as well, so Payne Haas is back.
Yeah, scoring well, getting good minutes. I think he's a tick over 60 minutes, and he looks like a weapon out there. So, yeah, if you've got a Cotter problem, Haas is your guy for sure.
You mentioned paying, top dollar for Cam Murray and getting scores of 40. You can pay bottom dollar and get a guy that's pumped out 84 and then 69 in Preston, who, quite frankly, is becoming a must play in your 17 every week.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems strange, doesn't it? Could people safely cull Murray this week and just put Preston in there?
No, it's the year. Honestly, you could spend $600K in your 2RF this year because you're going to have guys like Jackson Ford, you're going to have Hopgood, obviously, and you're going to have Preston. You could feasibly run those three, and Cardi, chuck Cardi in there as well. You could have four guys under 300K that you could viably play every week.
Here's a question: if you had Fafita and Murray, which one would you cull if you were going to cull one?
We'll get to that one in the trade talk because one of them in my team is fucking gone, and it's not Fafita. So we'll get to that. But yes, do you agree with me that Preston is becoming a must play in your 17?
Well, absolutely. He's scoring well enough in there for sure. I've played him since he right from when he started. I played him.
Okay, yeah, see, I had plans to play him last week, but the Adam Dewey, Willie won't he, really fucked me over, and I had to play Katoa, and that means I had to bench Preston, and that cost me, 50 points, so not ideal.
Yeah,
Paul Alamotti, just quietly becoming a pretty fine centre wing number 4 each week. I wouldn't be building around him like I would Preston, but, he could be better than Taruva.
Yeah, he's getting better every week. I said that to people last week. We got a win over Kando there in the old Turbo, whatever, the Podmasters
Cup, yes.
Yeah, because he played Warbrick and I played Alamotti, and I just felt like he went a 30, a 50, and this week it was a 70. That move down there with the Fox. I think that edge is, drumming up a really nice combination. So I think he's a nice one to play for sure. On most matchups, you could probably pick if you've got Warbrick and Khan Pereira, I can't think of many matchups in which I'd rather play them than Alamotti anyway.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Bulldogs left edge is humming. Another left edge that is also humming is the Sharkies left-hand edge. Ronaldo had a 60 last week, a 70 the week just gone. Talakai with a 58, Wilton with a 68, Wilton with a 68. I didn't really see him do a whole lot. So that left edge is clicking, and with Nico Hines coming back, it's only good things. All aboard the Ronaldo train. I'll be pumping him back up very shortly. But yeah, that left edge is starting to hum for the Sharkies, and I think Hines is only going to help that. Yeah, for sure. But this is what we were interested in them preseason for until the Nico news came through. Give Nico a couple of weeks, I guess, to get a look at him. No, fuck that. No, look at it. Nico is straight in. Oh, well, Nico's straight in, mate. I'm getting Nico straight away, but I'll have a think on the others. Absolutely. The Mulitalos and that. I think, like we said, Garrick's a big target for me, and I'm going to try to get the finances to marry up so I can get him. But, I don't mind a bit of a pod move on a Mulitalo. And look, Talakai, he's one of those divisive ones where people are like, oh, never again, because they had a bad taste in his mouth. But the people who have had a good transaction with him, he's going all right. Yeah, see, I'm in the good Talakai camp because I bought him the week after his breakout game, so I got him at cheap and I sold him just before he plummeted. So I'm in the camp of Talakai's fine. I don't know what the hate is. However, Ronaldo, as we've mentioned in the preseason, averages 86 with Hines in the side, and that's with Wilton in the back row. So I only expect good things from there. Teague Wilton, scored 67 in week 1 with that junkie try, but still scored 50 points in base. I think in round 2 he had 48. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was all in base as well. And then 68 this week, and the Sharks. It's weird because we'll touch on Nico Hines, but I feel like you're not buying any Sharkies next week. If you're going to go Hines, it's this week. Otherwise, you wait until after the bye. So I think if you're going to jump on that left edge and you want to jump on them early, this week could be the week to do it. Otherwise, wait till after the bye. Yeah, before Nico, the news of him out and when he was going to come back, we were saying, if you're not going to go Nico, you've got to get him back in for this round because not that the Dragons have been poor. I think it'll probably be a harder matchup than most people think. But you get him for this next couple of games if you're going to go. So, and otherwise I would be waiting till after the bye. So I'm going to be going. I'm getting to the stage now where I really want to take the host recap section out of the podcast just to save face. However, a bit of transparency and honesty on this podcast is what goes a long way. The Ramsey Rehab's 8-0. We finished up with 1,026. highlighted by Harry Grant. Obviously, he was my highest scoring player, and he was also my captain, so that always helps the situation. A couple of other guys in my team, Tom Trbojevic, obviously, and Lockie Miller finally had that game that we've been waiting for him to have. Consistent 50-point scorer, but got himself involved and scored a 98, which was nice. Christian Welch, Sam Walker, and William Warbrick, all three of those guys combined for about 50 points between them. You've got guys like Reid Marnie, Jermaine Hopgood, and Dave Fafita who all plotted around that 50-point mark. So, yeah, look, not fantastic. 1,026 for a rank of 3,000. Sorry, I wish it was 3,000. A rank of 34,747. In saying that, though, if I just pull up the homepage on my NRL Supercoach app, I have scored in total 3,074 points. It's fine. I'm not stressed about the rank. I'm only 300 points off the top 1K. That's bringing in Nico Hines in this week and captaining him for a good score and backing it up next week with another good score. In saying that, though, Ado, I think we were pretty honest on this podcast. We both said the first month for us would be rough because we went hard on Panthers and we went hard on Roosters, guys. So,
Yeah, well, that's it. And I mean, look, these, if you're a seasoned coach, you're probably in this period here trying to, with price changes, build your squad, fatten out your squad so you've got playable options. So I think that the dust will settle soon, and I think we'll start to see. Now I'm not seeing lots of green. I'm not seeing green arrows. I'm seeing just small falls in the red arrows.
Small red ones. And
I expect once the dust settles and we've got the stronger squads, we're going to start shooting up the ladder.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm not panicked at all.
Last year, I think I started off the same. I think I had 3 weeks of poor scores, and then in round 4. I think I had the 13th best score of the round in terms of all Supercoach, and that really propelled me up. So, just having one of those bounce back weeks is fine.
The funny thing is, we haven't had big, huge tons. What's the highest score of the year? It was
Karaz for the 140, yeah.
Otherwise, they've been low hundreds, and less hundreds in the week as well.
With the Rapana Bananas, you mentioned that you looped, and obviously William Warbrick kind of screwed that over.
Yeah, Rapana-ramas. 1,063 for us.
Did the loop work for you? Did you generate more points, or with the AE did you lose out? Who did you drop from your 17?
I dropped Warbrick and I got Warbrick back.
Yes. So it didn't really do anything for you.
No, it didn't do anything. And look, Harry updated to 105, so I did lose by a little bit. So no biggie. And look, it was points on the boards. I was actually going to captain Karaz, and that would have been worse because I moved away from Harry when I didn't want to play Warbrick, and I was going to play what's his name from the Warriors. I was going to play Williami, and he was a late out, so I had no choice but to loop then, and I was forced into the loop instead of captaining Karaz. But so it did actually work out better than that transaction, which I would have captained Karaz. So I'm okay with that. Reece Walsh was a good score. I got Preston, who I played, which was a pretty good score. I had Harry Grant and Tom Trbojevic as well. My bad stuff was the same as you. I had Warbrick. I played Katoa because I was panicked about. I should have just played Dewey. Because
this is what I mean though. Like, hindsight's fantastic, but we'd be sitting here going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Dewey didn't play. I got Warbrick score of 11 as my AE." So, yeah, I mean, we can be hindsight heroes all we want. I think with the question marks over Dewey, it was a really shit time because Katoa played early in the round, Dewey played late, so it really shafted us there. But, it's those sort of calls that you make. But, yeah, you live and move on. Like I said, you're 22,000 spots higher than me, but you're 150 points ahead of me, so it's not the end of the world. Let's move into Your Take, Not Mine, weekly segment where you guys give your hot takes and Ado and I review them. Feels like so long ago that we did last rounds, but Noah Buxton said Teddy gets up for the derby and has 120. Now, I wanted to highlight this because for 2 weeks in a row now, I feel like Teddy could have gone huge last week. I feel like he had a couple of points left begging again.
Yeah. He's looked like if a pass just gets thrown or he's like one pass off or one to stick off. So that's why it's been 50, 50, 60, I think, from him, but it could have easily been 100 in the last 2 weeks as well. So it was a gamble last week to sell Teddy for me and go to Walsh, and I actually made 40 more points than the others. And people have taken a loss on Teddy. You can see him on the list of most sold this week, obviously because of the buy, and everyone's going to Walsh this week. They're doing my move last week, this week.
Yes.
So there you go. But it's been so close for Teddy.
You mentioned Walsh. Justin McCall said Walsh with back-to-back tons. Now this one at the 72nd minute mark. Boy, howdy, you look like a clown, Justin. But he finished and just missed out. Just missed out with back-to-back tons. And BLY...
You should give him that. I'm giving it to him.
And BLY 137 said Hopgood back-to-back 100s. Now, Hopgood, it feels like so long ago. I was sitting in the middle of the ocean on a cruise ship watching this game, and I didn't know he picked up the ankle injury until, sort of the Monday. But boy, that stung a lot of people because Supercoach law, mate. Supercoach law dictates that after a player gets seamless hundreds, everyone captains him and he must get a 40. In saying that, though, Hopgood now has the record for the highest price rise ever in Supercoach. Yeah. He takes Talon's May record from round 2 to round 4 last year. So, yeah.
Yep, he's human, and I was affected by that. The less minutes, but he was captained by I think 14% or something.
Same amount of people captained him as the same amount of people that captained Harry. So it just shows you that it was had a big swing, and that's why I'm surprised I did have red arrows because I captained Harry and I thought I had the jump on people. Unfortunately, this week's your take, not mine. The FPL spot says Cleary to surpass his break even of 161. Now, huge call considering the bloke has scored about 100 points in 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's away. And it's not an easy matchup either. Oh, look, they'll be desperate, won't they? They get Maddo back, which should help him a little bit. I'm
thinking with the way that obviously Supercoach has now changed how they're scoring the try assists, we're not going to see these massive scores anymore.
I'm worried about that. That's the thing. I'm looking at VCs, and Cleary and Turbo seem like two great options because they seem like the only ones that might still be able to do it with like lots of try assists or lots of tries. Yeah. So it's tough, and that was like Karaz. That's how he got there with multiple tries. I don't know if we're going to see the big ones. I don't expect that he's going to get his 161, but I think I'm going to probably VC him this week.
So you still own Cleary?
Yeah.
Interesting. We'll be definitely watching that one with open eyes because I do not own. I will be buying next week, all fingers crossed. So I really hope he scores a 20 and just plummets in price even further. Really good friend of oh God, I hope not. A really good friend of the show, Aman Talk from Aman Talks NRLSC, says Val Holmes with 100 versus the Titans this week. Now I know straight away that you're going to agree with this because you're also expecting a big bounce back game from Val.
Yeah, I think he's due, and they've been a bit underwhelming, like we predicted, probably for the Cowboys. I like them at home. It's a home game, isn't it, for them this week? So, and I think Val's due, so I'm going to tip him this week to get that.
Yeah, I think Val's one big play away from a big score as well, so definitely not out of the question. Obviously, the other Queensland derby happening this week, not the Broncos and Dolphins. We get the Titans taking on the Cowboys. Moz says Grant with back-to-back 100s. Now, against the Tigers this week, far out with Munster back.
Got to be a chance.
Lock him in.
It's got to be a chance. That's the reason why I'm going to probably vice captain Cleary, because I just reckon it's a nice, strong captain option this week in Grant as well.
We always talk about vice captaincies. This is why I never understood Hopgood as a vice captain, because I just didn't think he had the upside, despite having 2 back-to-back 100s. I know that sounds probably a little bit counterintuitive, but I think Grant does have that 150-point upside. And against the Tigers, I mean, he had 3 try assists last week. Grant, he was down in tackles. Melbourne were very sloppy. So I just expect him. Also, in that Melbourne game, Grant looked very, very strong in the first 20 minutes. Like, really scheming out a dummy half. So, yeah, I was tossing up between VC on Turbo or VC on Grant. I think I'm going to lean ever so slightly towards Grant. And Cooper Truth says Walsh under 35. I mean, absolutely. He could be under 35 at the 75th minute mark, and then no one knows what's going to happen. Walsh is one of those guys, though, where I think if you're buying him, you need to strap in and get ready for the ride.
You do.
Under 35.
That's going to be a Walsh ride, and the funny thing is, Cooper's going to be right at some stage, if not, even if it's not this week. He's going to get some of them.
It's not like a Teddy that, Teddy does have those sort of that base stats in him, the tackle breaks, whereas Walsh is quite reliant on attacking stats. We do have a wonderful question on that this week, but let's move into buy, holds, and sells for the round. Top of the list is our aforementioned Reece Walsh. From the Brisbane Broncos at fullback. Doesn't have the price rise this week because he did miss out in the first game of the season. Didn't play. I'm obviously stalling for time so I can pull up his break even. I would imagine it's exorbitantly low. But obviously you own him. You're in agreements that Reece Walsh is a buy, considering with his minus 32 break even.
Yeah, he's definitely a buy. I think for people having playable options in fullback is optimal, and people have taken a bit of a sting on Teddy. He's got the high break even. You got somebody here with a nice negative break even. It's not the worst matchup. Dolphins have done well, but I'm tipping the Broncos this week, and I think Reece Walsh. It's a good matchup for him, I reckon. So I just think he'll come out, and maybe it's not a 35, maybe it's not a 100. Even if it's a 50, he's still going to make good money. And I'm going to have him as a short-term rent. I don't want to ride that roller coaster for very long. I'm going to get off and get back to somebody who's a bit more reliable.
Speaking of reliable, we've got two guys here that I can't really split. You've got Payne Haas and you've got Tom Gilbert. Now, I think you can't go wrong with either one of these options. Probably lean towards Gilbert just because he's probably a tad cheaper and does have the nice handy duel. But both those guys, with Ruben Cotter out, makes them both ever more reliable. If you had to pick one, where are you leaning with Gilbert or Haas?
Well, I'd want Haas for sure, but there's definitely a different budget. So whatever your budget is, I don't reckon either's bad, and I think you'll be happy with both purchases, whatever your budget is.
At 302k, despite going up 100,000 in the aforementioned first price rise, still has a minus 62 break even. It's Jacob Preston. I think he just should be in your side regardless of the price. People are worried about TPJ, but TPJ and Serraldo have both come out and said that his best position is front row forward, which I expect him to slot in that rotation quite nicely. Jacob Preston, despite the 100k price rise, I still think there's many, many more price rises to come.
Yeah, I mean, you forget about the price rise that's already happened. It's a bloke who's 300k who's got a minus 60 break even, so it's good business to bring him into your teams. You can play him too, which is another great thing.
Moving into the holds, I've put Tanner Boyd as a hold for 1 week. I think he's got a 40 break even. In a game against the Cowboys who have leaked points. If he gets a couple of points in goal kicking, I think he had 47 points and didn't really do a whole lot last week. So I'm going to hold on to him for 1 more week. This is me personally, because I do have a certain Penrith halfback we're going to be eyeing off. But I wouldn't be rushing out of my way to sell Tanner Boyd. I wouldn't be reliably playing him.
Yeah, that's fine. He's, I held the cheese last week, but I can't hold him this week. So it's fine if you need to hold him for 1 more week, and then use them to your advantage the week after, if you need to.
It does baffle me that Nathan Cleary is the 5th most traded up person this week. Despite having the bye last week, I feel like if you've come this far with him, you hold on.
Yeah, but people probably had other moves they wanted to do last week and knew that they weren't going to get burnt by Cleary's big cash loss. So they're just now catching up. They made trades last week to get in players who were going to make money because Cleary you can put him on the back burner.
Surely if you have Cleary now, you're holding.
Well, I made plans to be able to hold him and use Sam Walker to go back to Hines. But he's got a break even of 160. So he's going to probably lose money.
I guess. I'm in the holding camp. I'm also in the holding camp of Adam Dewey. Not loving it, but him at fullback maybe gives you another chance to have a look at him in saying that, though it is against the Melbourne Storm, which is a very, very tough game.
Yeah, I'm not going to move him. A lot of people have been sending me messages, should I just go down to Schuster? And that's going to probably leave them with Katoa and Schuster as their 5'8".
The only thing with Schuster, and this is what I'm not like, I've seen people bring Schuster in and not play him. Why? Just wait a week. Like, you can do it next week. If you're bringing Schuster in with the intent of bringing him in year 17, I understand that. But if you're bringing him in just to ride the pine, I'd rather just not.
Yeah, well, people are probably doing it even, to make the 400K. The 400K helps them do stuff. And, they were really disappointed by Dewey last week. So I just don't. I reckon if I got a bloke who is playing in fullback and I can pick him in 5'8", I'm going to have a look for a week. That's my logic. I want to have a look at him for a week and see. I was really worried about what I saw last week. And if he goes out and busts out another 20, that jump to Dillbags is going to become much harder than we think.
Especially if Dillbags, puts out another 70-plus performance. William Warbrick is being sold by a lot of teams. Now, still has a break-even of 16. Does play the Tigers this week. I can't sell when you're playing the Tigers.
No, and look, Camperera looked like an absolute bloody bust and then got a decent enough score to start generating a bit of cash. Warbrick just needs a try. He needs a try or two.
He needs another centre partner, I feel. I feel like Remus Smith is just killing him.
Yeah, Remus doesn't love a pass, does he? Look, Munster's back into the team. I mean, Melbourne are not going to stay down forever. No, they're probably not as the Melbourne we know and love. Well, know and love? I don't think we love them. But the Melbourne that we're used to. But Munster back in, they got Kamakamika and Sims in that last week. They're going to find their continuity. They're going to get better. I'm interested to see if Hughes beats his charge. Because if Hughes is in, I think that's good. And Munster, it's good for everyone.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm also holding another Melbourne Storm player in Christian Welch. Now, I'm going to put his minutes down to the Heat. We've seen what he did in round one. He was back to his Supercoach best. So I've got a little bit more faith that, those minutes do bounce back down in Melbourne. Very, very hot week last week. And maybe Bellamy was just trying to put some more mobile middles in as they found themselves, down. And I think Melbourne got steamrolled through the middle last week. And, hopefully Bellamy just trusts his club captain ever more, and I'm going to be holding Christian Welch.
Yeah, same. The minutes were good for week 1 and 2. I mean, yeah, they're getting some troops back. Kamakamika and Sims are sort of playing middles, but he's your captain, and he's an origin forward. So I just think that the minutes are going to be at least 50, and they were like that for the first couple of weeks. It was friggin' hot, in Queensland and in Brisbane / Gold Coast for that game. So, look, you could panic move, but I don't see any point in panic moving. Would you go Welsh to Gilbert?
If you had no other options, like nothing else in your sight, then sure. But surely people have other issues, including the man that is a big sell for me. Being Ruben Cotter, obviously this one is a teamless Tuesday dependent one, out for a quote-unquote few weeks, thanks to Ted Roker on Twitter. You've just got to sell him. You just unfortunately, when these injuries have no time frame. In saying that, though, he hasn't been overly impressive either, so I'd be cutting ties with Ruben Cotter, a perfect excuse to do so.
Yep, and Coach, that was the big worry. You're like, Cotter wants to play 80 minutes, but I just can't see Coach giving it to him. He likes to fart ass around with their minutes, and he has been.
Yeah, their bench does not inspire me at all. You've got Jake Granville, James Tamu, and Jermaine Snell-Brown. It's not an exciting bench. I'd be playing Cotter for big minutes, but that's just my opinion. My opinion was also to sell James Tedesco. Now, he's been 1 or 2 plays away from back-to-back hundreds, but unfortunately, Roosters have the bye. There's better options out there, and Reece Walsh, they're going to make you cash while he's out. Going to have a massive break even when he comes back as well. Roosters don't have a fantastic draw when he comes back, so I'd be looking at moving him on.
Yeah, there was a time where we would say that's crazy to ever sell Teddy. And look, people are like, it was just around the corner. If one of those passes stick, well, they didn't. They didn't. It's a game of numbers, and it's a 50-50 and a 60. He's got a huge break even. He's already lost money. He's into a buy. We've got these buys, and so you move him on, and you get yourself 2 playable fullbacks, and one of them that you bring in who's a good playable one for this week is going to make some money, most likely very good money. So you just do it, I think, and you might have a plan to get back to Teddy, once the dust settles, or maybe you're partial to a Trell. Maybe you've got someone that you want to go back to run home with for sure. And Teddy's going to be one of those ones that's probably an option for you to run home with. But making the move now, it's not a bad move.
Yeah, absolutely. After 2 really, really good scores from Sam Walker, he was staring down the barrel of a 20 break even. I was always selling him, even if he scored a 200. But I was hoping I'd be getting an okay price rise out of him. But lost ever so slightly. But with the emergence of Cleary coming back and a certain Cronulla Sharks halfback, He's being moved on in my eyes, and I think he needs to be moved on in other people's eyes too.
Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing because the first 2 games he looked really good, and if he'd pumped out an 80, it would have been just a nice little rent that we had of Sam Walker while we were waiting for Hines. Just let the tiny little bitter taste in my mouth, and instead of culling down one of my, a cheaper player, I'm going to have to get rid of the cheese, which doesn't really bother me either, really, to be honest. I would have preferred to hold him if I could, but that's it. Sam Walker just didn't have a good game last week, and only lost 9K, I think it was, instead of making a little bit. You move him on.
Now, we didn't mention Nico Hines because I did want to just do a little bit of a piece on him. I think buying Nico Hines is dependent on how big your balls are, really. How much of a gamble do you like? Because he's 900K. He hasn't played a game since the trials. And, he's come back from a calf injury, so it's a lot to put faith into. Now, I'm not going to begrudge you for buying Nico Hines. I'm also not going to tell you to run out of the way and get him. So I think it comes down to how much of a gamble do you want to take with said Nico Hines. What are your thoughts on the Dally M halfback?
Yeah, I think that there's pros and cons. I think the pros are definitely the next 2 matchups where if Nico was, if everything was, all the boxes were ticked, they were all ticks, he comes back and he's not hampered by the calf injury, and that, the Sharks, they haven't been playing that great either, but if he comes in and they just start playing the best that the Sharks can play, I reckon people could regret it for sure that they didn't bring Nico in straight away. But there is a chance of re-injury with calves. We know that seems to be one of the niche injuries that's happening, and broken jaws.
Yeah, it's a lot of broken jaws.
Yeah, and some calves. So, it's a high chance of re-injury type injury. And he's got to be a little bit rusty, hasn't he? He hasn't played for a while. So there's pros and cons.
In saying that, though, the way I'm looking at it is I can take a free gamble, because if he sucks for 2 weeks, it's a very easy move to Cleary.
Well, yeah, definitely. And, he's the top dollar as well, so you make some money off it probably, because Cleary looks like he's going to lose some money. So I agree with you. I think if you're going to do it, you do it now.
Oh, you don't do it next week. You absolutely do not do it next week.
You do it now. People are like, I'll get a look at him this week and maybe I'll do it next week. Well, then they go straight into the buy. So if you're going to do it, you get the big balls and you just do it now. I wanted Hines and Cleary. I was going to just take an AE in the round 13 when they were both on the buy. And I've planned my money to be able to do it in 2 moves this week with, other players. So I'm going to bring him in, and I'm just going to have faith in the fact that Nico's a stud, and hope that the injury doesn't hamper him and that he's not too rusty, that he just comes out and hits the ground running.
Yeah, you got some pretty big balls bringing him in, but mine must be ginormous because I'm going to bring him in and stick the armband straight on him. Big pressure.
Captain him. Yes. You're going to straight captain him.
I will be. I will be captaining him first game back. So let's touch on captains because this week is interesting. Number 1, I do have Harry Grant. Overall, I think he's the best option regardless of VC or C this week against the Tigers off the back of a 100-point performance. It's hard to really talk him down. Bloke just looks really, really good.
Yep. I agree, and that's going to be my captain. I'm going to go captain.
He will be my vice captain. Maybe I'm biased for putting him at number 2, but my captain for this week is Nico Hines. Now, against the Dragons, it's Nico Hines.
Yeah, it's an away game.
Who fucking cares? It's Nico Hines.
Well, he doesn't do as well away, I don't think.
Don't talk me out of it.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to do it. Yeah, look. I reckon I love doubling down. If you're going to bring him in this week,
if we go down, we're going down in flames. Fuck this half-ass shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to bring him in. Look, that's the other thing too, is with players like Warbrick and Khan Pereira, it's going to have to be a huge score. So you're going to go. That's the thing. I'm VCing a Cleary because I need someone who's got a potential to get a big score.
That's the thing, interestingly, and that's what people message me after, and obviously I took the piss out of a lot of people when they asked about turbo looping because I just said no. I've played Supercoach for 7 years. I have looped 4 times in 7 years. It needs to be an exceptionally big score for you to do it, especially this year with guys like Warbrick, Khan Pereira. I have Ben Murdoch-Marcelo, who's fucking ass. It needs to be 150 plus for me. And And yeah, I just didn't think Hopgood had it. Obviously, I think Grant's got that in him. I think Cleary's got that in him. I think Turbo's got that in him. So they're the guys you need to weigh it up in terms of what you're doing. So that's just my 2 cents. And obviously, yeah, we touch on Nathan Cleary. He comes back in to people's teams now that the Penrith Panthers are off the bye. He is my 3rd best captaincy this week, and I know he's had 2 scores of 50, but it's just hard to bet against pedigree.
Yeah, that's the thing about Teddy. We're saying it's not a matter of if, it's when. And Teddy could have done it in the last couple of weeks and just hasn't landed. Cleary will go big. And he's been one of those ones that has burnt people before who have in these exact scenarios where he's just come back and he's got a huge BE and everyone's like, oh, wait a week. This is just ready-made for what's happened in the past. I remember...
I'm terrified because last year I went early on Cleary and it paid off huge. So, yeah.
I mean, look, he's got a big break even. I think he's a strong play this week. It is an away game for them as well. But he's got a ceiling. He's got one in there. We know he's got a big ceiling. We know that Hines has got a big ceiling. There's a couple of big ceiling players, and Munster, a couple of big ceiling blokes have come back in this week, and I reckon that's going to make this week much more interesting.
I've just got vibes on. I've got nothing to back this up. I've just got vibes with Parramatta. I feel like it's either going to be like a 10-8 defensive masterclass, or it's going to be like 42-30. Like there's not going to be an in-between game. I think it's going to be points galore or barely any at all. And obviously for Cleary owners, they're going to hope it's on the other end of that. Number 4 for captaincy, I've got Val now up against the Titans. I think that breakout game is just around the corner. And it depends on how big you want to go with Val. I have him ranked higher than Turbo, who I've got at 5, and we'll talk on him soon. But Val, a really favourable matchup. Just keen to see the Cowboys bounce back. And you are putting a lot of faith in the Cowboys bouncing back with no Reuben Cotter, because a lot of Val's points are going to come from goal kicking. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's due. He's going to land at some stage. I don't hate it.
Sweet. And Turbo at 5. Obviously, it's Turbo. It doesn't have the greatest matchup this week against the Bunnies. I'm pretty sure it is, but... It's Turbo. He's not captaincy material for me, but he is definitely vice captaincy candidate.
Yeah, I think so, because he's got a ceiling, and it's just not the best matchup. It's a pretty good team, and it's away. So, I mean, if it was at Brookie, I could still be tempted by Turbo for sure, because he plays a hell of a lot better there. But yeah, I think there's a couple of other decent, better options, I reckon, for me this week.
Let's talk our trades. Let's start with yours. We've done mine the first last couple of weeks. Let's talk on your trades, Ado, and what your plans are this week.
Yep, well, because of Sam Walker risk-rolling me with his losing money instead of making a bit of money, I've had to cull a medium piece, and that is the cheese. I've gone down to Sonny Luke. It was, it banks me a bit of money, and I've got 120K left in the bank now after doing the move, which is fine. So he's going to go down to Sonny Luke, and I'm going to go Sam Walker up to Hines. I'm only going to do the 2. I'm going to hold the boosts and save those for the major buy rounds. And that's it. Hines in. And Sonny Luke, I think he's got a lowish break. He probably start making a bit of money.
Are you playing Sonny Luke?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, no, not playing him.
Fuck holding boosts. I don't do that around here. I used all 5 and 7 weeks last week and it worked out pretty well. We're gonna be boosting again. We're gonna be trading. We're gonna be trading out Cam Murray.
Ooh,
Don't know how I feel about that because sure as shit he'll score 120 and look like a fucking moron. But Cam Murray is out for Jackson Ford. Now I'm very thankful that Jackson Ford did have the HIA, which stopped his price rise last week. Still has a break even of 12 or something this week. So. Getting him in, definitely. We're going Sam Walker to Nico Hines, which is nice. And look, going Nico Hines, I'm already strapping myself into a up and down roller coaster. Do I want to be having that? Do I want to be looking at my score on Monday and seeing Nico Hines scores 15 and Reece Walsh scores 10? Probably not. So I'm going to be a little bit more safer. And instead of bringing in Reece Walsh, we're bringing in our Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs friend in Jacob Kiraz. I need some consistency. I don't want to, have 2 guys that are going to give me heart palpitations. So by doing that, we're going to shift, either Lockie Miller or Taruva down to fullback. It doesn't really matter who it is. Lockie Miller will have the reserve armband on him, however. So yeah, they're my moves. We're going to be boosting. In saying that though, Ado, Let me pull up my team because I have a lot of money in the bank. I think I've got 450k in the bank. A lot of cash. And the plans next week, Dory to Schuster and Tanner Boyd to Nathan Cleary. So
nice. You'll get back to the players I already have.
Yeah, and then look, maybe we boost again next week. It'll be depending on Ryan Sutton and sort of Tom Gilbert and how much money I have in the bank, because Ryan Sutton's probably the biggest weak point in my side at the moment. But yeah, 3 boosts in 3 weeks. I'm against using boosts if it's just pointless, but if you're fixing up weak points in your side, then that's what I'm sort of doing. So yeah, we'll see.
If I was going to use a boost this week, it'd be a luxury. Well, I mean, I would have done Dewey essentially to Garrick because I really want Garrick, and I have a little bit of doubts over Dewey, but it is luxury, so I'm just going to hold.
Yeah,
Dewey, to fullback, I'll get a look for a week, and I just won't pull the trigger. I'm not against using one next week if the combination of what I want to do in my team requires a boost to make it happen. Do it. If it can be, people send me like, would you boost blah for blah? And I'm like, tell me your 3 moves.
You need
your 3
way
outs,
more than that.
3 ins. It's a move of 3 things, and that's how I look at it. Not one move, because what else did you do?
Yeah.
Like I need to see what those. Why did you use the third one?
Yeah,
what did it gain you?
You need context.
So,
you
I agree.
definitely need context. Let's move into some questions from the wonderful, wonderful listeners. AOSDs, in fitting fashion, we're talking about the boosts. He asks, is using boosts early on bad this year? With buys and the new HIA rule, you could get stung. Now, you've got 2 different people on this podcast who have very, very different opinions on the boosts. I say, fuck it, let's just use them. Ado's a bit more conservative than me. I think you use the boosts to fix your team. If I could make 5 or 6 trades this week, or if I could make 5 or 6 trades last week, I would have. And I'd be very comfortable to sit on it for a month. Unfortunately, it's not how it's done, so I want to be fixing up my squads ASAP, especially when it comes to cash cows. Schuster next week, Jackson Ford this week, Karaz before he gets out of hand. These are the reasons why I'm boosting. I'm not just boosting for the sake of it. I'm boosting because I want to fix up the issues that I made from the preseason. I think last year I finished with 1 person in my squad that I started the season with, and that was Max King. I held him throughout the entire year. Otherwise, I traded everyone else out. So,
did you regret at any stage in the year you're like, fuck, I wish I had a boost? After they were gone?
Maybe like, very, very late in the season. I was very lucky last year. I had a lot of depth. So I ran out of trades in round 22 last year, but I had plenty of depth.
I mean, look, I used up mine pretty quickly as well.
I had the plan. I literally sat here on this podcast and I said, oh, we've got 5 boosts. I'm going to use 1 early on, 2 for the buys, and 1 for the late. And I used 5 in 7 weeks. So it didn't happen.
All I will say that is different this year is we've got 3 major buy rounds.
I just think you need to be more smart with your trades this year. Not so much more conservative. Just be more smart. Like, don't buy Nico Hines next week, for example, because he's out. Buy him this week or buy him in round 7. So I think be more smart with your moves rather than just being like, oh, I'm going to fucking boost for the sake of it.
Yeah. And I mean, look, if you're bringing in players that have already had a buy or they're going to miss one of the major ones, you just got to look at that sort of stuff for the people that you're bringing in. That's it. Put a price on your boost a little bit. If it's doing something that is value in your team,
like bringing in Adam Elliott last year.
Yeah, boost for Elliott. Now I'm going to try to put 3 aside because I just know when those major buys come up, you're going to have a lot of people out of your team, and just to pump 1 in. If you've got a huge piece that you just go, I cannot sit that many on the sideline. Yeah. Activate a boost, and then I can make 3 trades in those rounds, and that's my plan. And if I can manage to, I mean, look, obviously I can use 1 more, and I still have the 3 left for those major buys. But I'm going to try my best to get to that round 13 and have all of the rest of my boosts in hand.
I'll be lucky if I have any around 13. In all seriousness, though, like, the only luxury boost I'm using might be next week for Ryan Sutton NFE, but he's still putting at 40. It's not terrible, but yeah. Zig Dog asks, are we witnessing a dramatic shake-up with last year's top 8 teams not hitting the mark early on? And what are the ramifications for Supercoach? Now, I included this one because I was sitting in a barbershop at the start of round 4 last year. And I live in Newcastle. And I was fucking hearing it. Oh, we're winning the comp. Everything's... Newcastle were 3-0 last year. And we know how that went. I would just chill. I don't... There are some sides that I'm concerned about. like the Cowboys. I'm not concerned with Melbourne too much because I just think they've been decimated. Same with the Roosters. Just decimated with injuries, and I think when they come back, they'll be fine. But like, let me pull up the ladder because I want to ask, like, who are the real surprises? Broncos in the top 8? Not really.
No, it's not a surprise.
I mean, they're in first, but they haven't had the hardest draw of all time. The Dolphins, obviously.
Yeah, big surprise.
The Sea Eagles, no.
No, I mean, it's like
Not with Turbo.
If Turbo's in there, the sky's the limit.
The Warriors, yes. Admittedly,
Yes.
I didn't have them as high as I did. The
No,
Panthers,
but he's
the
a
Panthers,
good coach, and he's come from a good system. They're doing good things. I don't know if they're going to land in the 8, but I think we need to rethink them being 14, 15.
yeah, 100%.
They'll battle it out around that 8 with some other teams.
Panthers in the top 8, obviously not. Titans, touch and go. It really depends on how they're used for feeder. The Roosters and the Bulldogs, both those teams, I mean, the Roosters are a bit lower, but the Bulldogs, we said in the preseason, they're challenging for the top 8. And then we look a bit deeper. I mean, the Sharks, they've been without their best player for 3 weeks. The Storm have had no forwards. The Cowboys, yeah, they stink. And look, Parramatta, they are 3-0. Oh, sorry, 0-3. But they haven't had the easiest start, in all honesty. So, like, I'm not fussed. I'm not worried about these.
They may be none from 5, but you have a look at their draw after that. They could then be 5 from 10.
I think
probably.
I think the biggest outrage here is obviously the Tigers at 17th. Hey, are the Tigers the only team that can get worse after getting the spoon last year? How do you go lower than 16?
They've spent millions of dollars, millions on players.
But no, look, in terms of Supercoach,
How did you fuck up Appy and iPad?
Mate, fucking, I'm a Dolphins life member. I got a membership with the Dolphins. I don't know what you're talking about.
Might be time, mate. Oh, I tell you what. I mean,
when's this 18th team coming in? Hurry up. In all honesty, like, when it comes to ramifications for Supercoach, it's too early. I mean, it's 3 weeks. I feel like everyone's very reactionary right now. I think everyone's at their peak, like, fuck, it's terrible.
Because you know, like, you look at I think we had early rounds last year. Even we had some 1300s, 1400s.
If I get to round 6 and I'm still at 34,000, then yes, I'm going to start fucking panicking. But right now, I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, look, this is where everyone's setting up their team. It's that moving parts, and it's how everyone emerges from that, which is going to see where you really are. So I agree with you. I think we get past round 6. But we're going into round 4. So round 4, round 5, round 6, 3 more rounds. We've had 3. Let's get a look at 3 more. And then price changes are well in swing then, and we'll see where everyone lands.
Obviously, I'm not rich enough as Tim Williams to employ some Supercoach minds like Adam DeRussi, but I would be very curious to see if Adam did crunch the numbers on how many sides in the top 1,000 had nuffs. That's something I'd be very interested to see, as to how many of those teams in the top 1K, what their team value is, and how much cash they're generating. Mate, I just made 300K in a week just by having cash cows. So I'm not fussed. I think I'm building my team moving forward. Fuck, I think I was 80K after two rounds last year, so it is what it is. It's fine. Let's move to the last question. Jeff S. says, how do we approach zero-base players like Walsh and even AKP to an extent? Now, this is why I wasn't overly keen on Walsh buying Hines, because I just wanted to get Carraz in, who was safe as houses. But guys like AKP, Warbrick, I think these are guys that you just have to play on matchups. You look like a genius when it comes off. You look like a moron when it doesn't.
Yeah, that's right. And it's different for them to Walsh because they've got no value. So anytime they do anything, that gets them going in a nice way, big time. Walsh, for instance, 600 or whatever K, that hurts when he gets a real low one. So it's the same thing we have with AJ. If the run is going well, the run of scores, it's great time to own those players. But these ones that have a low floor and a high ceiling, people are finding that out about Nanai.
Oh man, I was the same. I shit canned Xavier Coates all preseason, and then don't ask me why. I decided to start with him. I think he had back-to-back scores of under 20, and then he just went 100, and he went from 300K to 650 in about a month and a bit. So these guys, look, it's tough because AKP obviously, yeah, he's not cost, like, you haven't bought him to play him. You bought him just to sit on the sideline. I think with him, he could come out and score 4 tries in 2 weeks. I don't think I can viably play him. I just think it's all matchup based. I think you just have to enjoy the ride, but build your side around guys like him without playing them, Walsh is different because you're paying more money for a guy with fuck all base. It was
and that's why you're trying to mitigate risk, and that's why you've gone with the Karaz.
Well, it's why I wasn't keen on Drinkwater. It's as much as
a whole,
as much as it's a meme. Like I wasn't keen on Drinkwater because I didn't want to pay $750K for a guy with no base. It's why I want Karaz. I think everyone wants Karaz, but like I feel like if I don't get him this week, I'm not going to be able to afford him. Whereas Walsh, he's got a -30 break even, but Walsh could score 15 points this week, and he's not going to get out of range. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
On 0 at half time could just have 2 bad halves and finish with them.
Shoulder charge Kyle Felt in the jaw, get sent off, finish on minus points.
I think he updated to 1 actually.
Good on him. What a champion.
So look, those players you really look at your team as a whole and try not to have too many of those, because there could be a week where they all fall over and you really drop massively on the ladder. But someone like Walsh, I think, is a safe enough pick this week. And that's like I've said, I want him as a short-term rent. Yeah. And you're committing yourself to another trade in there to get him, once he's done some money making, back to one of the other ones that might be a premium who's lost some money. But you've got to be prepared for these low floor guys will show their floor sometimes.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. Let's finish up with the tips for the round, and we'll let you get on your way. After 3 rounds, you and I are both tied on 12. I think we've both gone 4-4-4 in the first 3 weeks.
Far out, I think.
I have been tracking betting.
At least last week there was some upsets.
Well, that's what I was literally about to say. I've been tracking betting trends, and if you placed $100 on every NRL underdog, according to the betting markets, every underdog, you'd be up $1,200 this year after 3 rounds. So it just shows you how swingy it has been. You've got the Dolphins winning in round 1, the Broncos beating the Panthers. It throws things out of whack. So Eels against the Penrith Panthers. Penrith, I think teams off the bye have looked really good. I think the Dragons won in round 2, Manly won in round 3. I think teams coming off the bye go 3 for 3. I'm taking the Penrith Panthers.
Me too. Look, it is CommBank, and they play pretty well there, the old Eels. They've got to be getting to desperation stakes, I think, to want to win one. But I just think Penrith, having dropped a game, they looked actually much improved last game as well. I think that the rest will have done them well, and I think they'll win. Closest
game of the round. This one could go either way. Melbourne up against the Tigers.
Yep, I'm going to give this to Melbourne. Wouldn't it be funny if they... What would happen? What would Bellyache do?
Oh, mate. Fuck what I'd give to be a fly on the wall if they get done by the Tigers.
For 3 in a row.
Oh, mate. Oh, I'm also going for the Storm. The Dolphins up against the Broncos. This one is at Suncorp. I'm going to be taking the Broncos to end the dream start for the Dolphins.
Yep, same. Look, the Broncos were... I said that the Dragons are a bogey team for them, and they nearly did drop it. But I think that they'll be keyed up for this match. They want to be, the big Brisbane team. They're going to go and give them a serve, I reckon.
One Brisbane team is finishing this game 4-0, which fucking weird times. The Cowboys up against the Titans. Ooh.
You're the cow lover? The Cows?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I hate Holbrook. But I'm going to back I'm going to back a Cowboys bounce back.
Yeah, same. I'm going to say the Cowboys at home will get the job done here against the Titans, who won last week. They're just so up and down.
This one...
Hopefully they don't hook 4 in this week.
Yeah, that was weird. We didn't talk about that, but that was weird. This one actually could be a really tough game to pick. You got the Rabbitohs with no forwards. Shaq Mitchell's out for 8 weeks. Sele's out. Totola's out. Liam Knight and Jai Arrow are both out, I think. Well, I know Jai Arrow's out. They've got no middles. Up against the Seagulls. It's at a core stadium. The Rabbitohs did get the job. They got dusted by the Roosters last week. I'm going to go the Seagulls.
I'm going to go the Bunnies, actually.
Okay, so we finally got one difference. The Warriors up against the Dogs. This one's at Mount Smart.
This one's actually going to be a tough one because the Warriors have been very good.
They have been.
And at home, I'm going to tip the Dogs. I think that the Dogs...
I don't know what happened last week with the Dogs. They looked like they could have put 50 on us and they just put the cue in the rack.
Yeah, I think that they're sort of working out their way of playing, their style, and I think maybe even the Warriors are doing that as well. I reckon this one's actually going to be a really close one. But I'm going to say the Dogs. I know it's an away game, but I just think that if I look at them on paper, they probably got a team that I think should win it. They're going to start seeing themselves as a team that should win that.
Despite not being named, I still expect Wade Egan to score some try out of nowhere and, just punish the non-owners. I'm going to take the Bulldogs here. This one's a really, really toss-up. The Knights up against the Milk. This one's at McDonald Jones. If I'm not doing anything on Sunday Arbor, I might pop down and watch this one. I'm going to go... I'll go the Milk.
Yeah, look, I'm going to tip the Milk. Every time I tip them, they bloody lose though. So I want to break the cycle. I want to try to tip them and get them a win. Look, they should have won against the Dolphins, the Raiders, and they just let it slip in.
Should have won against the Cowboys, if I'm going to be honest.
Should have won against the Cowboys, and they got it done against their bunny. They love playing the Melbourne Storm and the Sharks, don't they? The Raiders. I thought they looked pretty good last week, the Raiders. So I just I'm going to tip them. I hope they bank the points. I just want to win.
I'm looking at this draw. I hate the fact that I've invested $900K into a bloke that plays the last game of the round that I can't trade dirty one if it doesn't pay off. But I'm going to stick with the Sharkies. I think the Sharkies bounce back against the Dragons. The Dragons hung in there, but I just think Nico Hines is going to put on 6 try assists, break the all-time point scoring record, and it's going to propel me to the top 1K.
Okay, I love it. I love all of it. The Sharks have really got to start to get their season on track because they haven't been
up and down, very up and down.
A bit up and down. So I think that I'm going to tip the Sharks.
One against the Eels when they probably shouldn't have on paper. Lost last week when they probably should have won. So time to get some performance in there. But that is going to be the Dual Position podcast done for round 4. Ado, my friend, I will see you same time next week for round 5 when let's hope we both get some green arrows.
Yeah, I need a green arrow. I just want a bloody green arrow. Even if it's 2 spots, I'll take it.
Lovely. Let me make sure I've got the right ending screen. But we'll see you on the flip side, and we'll talk to you when we talk to you. Farewell.
Cheers.